Most men think that the most dangerous thing that they can do is be weak. But I've learned over the years that one of the most dangerous things that a man can do is be emotionally numb. Now, today, I want to talk about guys that are like me, that are in a similar situation that I have been in, and the ones who have been taught to tough it out and just suck it up and to get through everything in life and just don't talk about anything that you're feeling. Uh, who think being silent makes you strong, who bury everything and call it leadership. Because I had a moment where my wife looked at me and said something, not with anger, not with emotion, just clarity, and said that she didn't need me to be tough all the time. She needed me to be honest and she needed me to be healed. So the crazy part is that I had just started therapy and we had just found out that she was pregnant. And I really didn't realize how much I needed to hear that or how deeply I needed that healing until the people who I loved were telling me that about me. So today we're going to talk a little bit about healing, a little bit about men's mental health, and a little bit about my journey in therapy. And hopefully you guys get something out of it. So stay tuned. Hello, good morning, wherever you guys are watching or listening from. Welcome to another episode of Better Men Daily. Real quick, if you guys are on YouTube, please go ahead and like this episode. It'll help boost me in the algorithm and get these contents out to more people. And also subscribe if you are enjoying the content that's been put out so far and want to see more of it. If you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, welcome. Thank you for tuning into another episode. So today we are going to talk about therapy. We're going to talk a little bit about men's mental health, and we're going to talk about how all of that is tied together for me and making me the best man that I possibly can be. So I want to start with talking a little bit about my childhood or the way that I learned to cope with my emotions or lack thereof, and then we're going to talk a little bit about my turning key moments and what really set me on this trajectory of seeking out healing in so many different ways possible. And if you get to the end of the episode, we are going to talk about one key question that you can ask yourself, one key note to take home with yourself to ask and try to improve yourself and your mental health. So, my childhood, I grew up around hardworking, no-nonsense men, the guys who fix things with tools and silence and just got it done. And, in some ways, I became one as I was growing up because that's what I was surrounded by, which is not odd. But for years, I thought that if I just grind and I just keep moving forward, that's what it meant to be strong. And I didn't even realize that I was walking around completely emotionally flatlined. And this is the start of a long process that really kind of kicked off when I got with my now wife, but then girlfriend, and started trying to work through some of my emotions, which did not go very well at first, and honestly hasn't gone well up until the last 6 to 8 months, and it's still a work in progress, so I don't want to act like I've made it. Like I say all the time, this channel is field notes for you guys. I'm out here working with you guys side by side to become a better man. I'm not speaking from a podium or from a throne. And I've struggled with a lot of these things. I've struggled with quick temper and lack of emotional availability and moments of passive aggression or just active aggression and stonewalling and no room for softness or fear or grief or any emotion whatsoever. I was in a place where I had the church face on. I'm saved in Christ, so none of the stuff that I've gone through matters anymore. I was killing it at work. And it wasn't until that I was in a marriage and had responsibilities and at work was leading teams on projects worth millions of dollars that I finally realized something was wrong and I was basically running on fumes emotionally. And that was kind of the first 20-something years of my life. And that kind of brings us to my wake-up call. My wake-up call that changed everything was when my wife found out that she was pregnant with our first son. And I realized, I don't want to just be a man. I want to become the kind of man that my son can look up to. And that kind of changed everything for me. And my wife and I, we sat down and we had this real moment where we both said, we're going to do the work now and we're going to go through this now so that we can not have to scramble later when he's growing up and try to set the right example then. So after my wife and I had this moment, she supported me 100%, and I did the same, and we both signed up for therapy. And I started eating clean and hitting the gym again, not because I was broken and needed the fixing of therapy, but because I wanted to be whole before my son could call me a dad. And when I first started therapy, it was definitely no walk in the park. It was really awkward for me. I was not one keen on showing my emotions, and I'm still not, and I'm still working on this. But luckily, I was blessed to have a great therapist, and even then, there was some awkwardness at the beginning, and there was some shock of naming emotions that I've ignored. There was a lot of things that I hadn't even realized that I had buried in my childhood from that, suck it up mindset and that stick to it mindset where you just ignore everything else. And it was this moment in therapy that I started realizing that my reactions to things were not random. They were patterns that I just hadn't unpacked yet. And it wasn't a breakdown that sent me to therapy. It was a vision of myself that I wanted to become, not just for myself, but for God and for my family. And that was the driving factor. And I knew I had all this stuff to work through before I could lead well. And once I started approaching therapy with this mindset, it changed everything for me, and it kind of removed the stigma of therapy. And honestly, we don't talk enough about healing as preparation. It's not weakness, it's getting strong in the areas that you actually care about and that actually matter. And toughness is reactive. When you get mad and you get puffed up over something that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, that is a reactive and survival instinct, if you will, where healing is intentional. You're making that prepped and prepared step forward into something better than you were at before. And we do such a bad job as a church, if you're a Christian, as a culture, not just in America, but nationwide for men, that we just carry the stigma of, if you're a man who needs to go to therapy and talk through things and talk through their emotions, then you're weak or you're lesser than man. And I'd argue that it's the opposite. I used to think therapy was for guys who'd lost control, obviously, because like I said, we carry that stigma in this country. But now I know, after going through it myself and seeing what it's done for me, that it's for guys who want to take control over their emotions, their family, their future, and their responses to things. And it's only helped me show up better in communication in my marriage, in more patience and empathy in all facets of my life, clarity in my faith, and my leadership professionally. I have shown up across the board in an improved new manner than I did before I was going to therapy and working through all of these emotional dysregulations and issues that I was dealing with. And I know maybe some of the people who are watching this channel, you guys are not Christians, but for me, faith is my anchor in being a better man. So I'm always going to share that. And for me, I look to the ultimate man, which was Jesus. And even Jesus, he withdrew and grieved and had emotions and wept and was sorrowful at times. And yet he was the strongest man of all, because he was 100% man and 100% God at the same time. Strength doesn't mean being invincible necessarily for us, but it does mean letting God work in the parts of you that no one else can see. Being worked on and pruned in that quiet place. Psalm 147 verse 3 says that he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. If you guys are willing to just take that step of faith, whether you're a Christian or not, into healing and into working through generational trauma and saying it doesn't have to be this way. I don't have to handle my emotions this way just because I'm a man. I somewhere along the line picked up that emotions are for women, and if you feel something as a man, you got to bury it deeper, but that's just not the case. So if you're listening to this and you're a guy who thinks I'm fine, I've got this handled, ask yourself this question. Are you leading from fullness, or are you just surviving on fumes right now? And healing didn't make me soft. It made me sharper, as a matter of fact. It made me clearer. It made me stronger. And not just for me, but for my wife and for my son, who's going to be here very soon, and for my coworkers who depend on me as a leader. It improved me all around the board and made me a better man. So that's the question I want you guys to take home and ponder on today. If you guys are in this journey with me, alongside me, drop a comment and talk about what therapy has done for you, or if you're thinking about going to therapy, go into the comments for some encouragement from some others in this community. That's what we're here for. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and like this video if you're on YouTube. And if you are on YouTube and enjoying this content, please go ahead and subscribe as well if you're serious about becoming a better man, because I'm not just shouting from the finish line. I'm shouting in the middle of the race with you guys, trying to encourage you to keep going as much as I'm encouraging myself to keep going. If you guys are watching on Apple Podcasts, or listening rather, or on Spotify, thank you for tuning into this episode of Better Men Daily. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.